Liberated Learners Centers. Liberated Learner Centers are another type of self-directed learning center that are specifically designed for teens. The first Liberated Learner Center was opened in 1996 in Amherst, Massachusetts, by former teachers Ken Danford and Joshua Hornick. It was originally called Pathfinders and has since relocated to Sunderland, Massachusetts, and changed their name to North Star. Typically, Liberated Learner Centers play a large role in coaching families on how to leave the school system. Liberated Learner Centers specifically state they are not schools, and all attendees must legally register themselves as homeschoolers. They provide weekly one-on-one mentorship, tutoring, community, facilities like study rooms and computers and music rooms, and also a variety of classes and workshops for youth to attend. While they do offer classes, students are not required to attend them, and the classes do not offer grades. When asked why they would offer classes at an unschooly-centric place, Ken Danford, who is now the executive director of North Star, says, "I think it's important to have classes. Some parents want to see some level of structure, and it gives the teens something to say no to, which is very empowering." Reference 156. When I reached out to Ken to ask him for more details about why they chose to offer classes, Ken added, "Teens also want to see some level of structure and have things offered to them. Adults like sharing things they love with a willing group of students. Just like a senior center or an after-school program, people may want a reason to go somewhere other than just to go see who else is there and what they're up to. Having a specific class to look forward to and attend helps people organize their days and weeks. Allowing people to say no can be quite revealing to themselves, and yes, it feels empowering. I'm all for having a system that lets people offer regularly scheduled and planned activities with one another. Assuming everyone can say no, including the teacher if they feel their offer is not being honored, seems to be a great situation." Reference 157. I visited 4 different Liberated Learner Centers in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Jersey. I remember sitting in on a particularly interesting biology class at Beacon Self-Directed Learning in New Haven, Connecticut. The teacher was a venture capitalist in the medical device space who volunteered once a week at Beacon. The class he ran was very informal. About 20 students gathered in a room, others opted out, and the teacher turned on a PowerPoint presentation with some slides. He told everyone that if they wanted, he could go through some slides, or they could just ask questions and have a discussion. While one could imagine a conventional school where students are afraid to raise their hand, the teacher could easily end up flipping through their PowerPoint slides and essentially reading a script to the classroom. In a Liberated Learning Center, however, every student that shows up to a class has chosen to be there, which creates a culture where engaged learning is the norm. In this particular class, some hands went up immediately from students with questions and the conversation began. I don't know if I would describe it as a question and answer session or simply a discussion, but it was really interesting. For 2 hours, we talked about everything from the history of medicine to modern disease prevention to different career paths in the medical field. It was really exciting to see such curiosity from the students and such flexibility from the instructor, who felt entirely comfortable following the students' interests rather than feeling obligated to stick to a pre-planned presentation he arranged. In keeping with their stance that they are not a school, but are an alternative to school, most Liberated Learner Centers are only open 4 days a week to encourage young people to find things to do outside of the learning center. For example, instead of attending North Star on Wednesdays, young people are encouraged to get internships, volunteer, take up a hobby, or partake in other community-related activities. As Ken Danford shared at a book signing for his new book, Learning is Natural, School is Optional. We originally closed on Wednesdays because I needed a day off. I was exhausted from running this place. We quickly discovered it was important to close 1 day a week and tell kids to go get a life. You don't need us every day. There's a whole world out there waiting for you. Go after it. Reference 158. For youth enrolled at Liberated Learner Centers, daily attendance is not mandatory. Students are free to come and go whenever they want. There is no attendance, and young people do not need to sign in and out of the building whenever they leave. Though there is a weekly community meeting, it is not required. In fact, Nothing at North Star is required. As you might imagine, having no attendance policy and only being open 4 days a week, North Star does not offer diplomas. I would say that these qualities make the Liberated Learners model the most radical example of a self-directed learning center. I remember sitting down with Ken at the Life Without Instructions conference and him repeatedly bringing me back to the point that a diploma doesn't add any value to someone's life. Jim, you're not paying attention, so I'll say it slowly. The diploma opens 0 doors that aren't already open. Reference 159. He shared with me about alternative paths teens at North Star took. Teens as young as 15 or 16 were taking the GED or high-set exams to earn equivalency diplomas, were taking community college classes, getting internships and real work experience, and sometimes even transferring into colleges as sophomores while their peers were still finishing their final year of high school. The problem with diplomas is that they all have the same weight, even though everyone receiving one is getting a different educational experience when you take into account the different level courses people take and the different grades they receive. The diploma itself only demonstrates that you've completed a series of courses. It has no bearing on how much you've actually learned. The model of awarding diplomas for completing credits may have made sense in the early days of conventional schooling when students in each grade were learning the exact same content at the exact same time, but its merit disappears under any modern attempt to personalize education. The diploma is like a vestigial organ. The purpose it was originally designed for is no longer needed. And reflecting on my conversation with Ken, I realized the significant implications of making diplomas irrelevant. If society accepted that the diploma offered no value in demonstrating a student's intelligence or capability, then the conveyor belt in our manufacturing plant-style assembly line of a school system would stop working. In other words, if we remove the figurative finish line, then all of the preceding steps in the assembly line can be relaxed. One consequence of removing the diploma would be a reduction in our dependence on high-stakes standardized testing. Since testing acts as a quality control system to make sure children are moving through the educational assembly line without missing any components, so they will be a completed human product at graduation time, removing the finish line makes the standardized testing mostly irrelevant. Removing the diploma from the education system could be the first step in a substantial systemic change that focuses on learning rather than schooling. It's no surprise, then, that the motto of the Liberated Learners is learning is natural, school is optional. Ken Danford wrote about his views on graduation after attending his own children's public high school graduation ceremonies. I found my children's graduation ceremonies to be happy community events, but they left me with one primary critique. The graduation speakers presented school as if it were a long journey with only one acceptable outcome: graduation. They congratulated students for making it to that point, as if school were a divided highway with one exit toll booth, through which the students were now passing. Reference 160. At North Star, there is no official "congratulations, you've completed the program" to give anyone. You simply leave and move on with your life when you are ready. The natural question to ask is, what do North Star teens move on to do with their lives after North Star? At the end of 2017, Ken released 2 reports on the outcomes of 473 alumni who attended North Star in its first 25 years of operation. The report compares the outcomes for teens who used North Star as a kind of short break from their education and those who utilized North Star for their entire teenage education. A summary was published on the Alliance for Self-Directed Education website, reference 160. When looking at what both groups of teens did with their lives after leaving North Star, Ken made an interesting observation. North Star coaches teens to leave school and embark on a self-directed path. It turns out that for 82% of our members, the first activity after North Star is school. This includes young teens that return to high school and older teens that go on to community college, 4-year college, or formal certificate or training programs. In the long term, at least 69% of North Star alumni enroll in a college or formal training program. Reference 162. The follow-up question people tend to ask is, what colleges did North Star alumni get into? The full report has a list of every college any alumni attended, but I'll give you some highlights, not only to show you the prestigious names, but to show you the variety of certificate programs, community colleges, and universities. American Musical and Dramatic Academy, Maine School of Masonry, Sage Mountain Herbal, Peace Corps, Hampshire College, Brown College, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Reed College, Yale Law School, and many others. Reference 163. Since most view the purpose of attending college is to help one get a job, I think it's most important to observe the career paths that North Star teens ultimately pursued. And looking at the group of teens who specifically spent the majority of their teen years at North Star, Ken reports, North Star alumni are in every field from midwifery to mortuary services. They are doctors, lawyers, bankers, realtors, teachers, psychologists, and school administrators. There are many involved in the healing arts. We have musicians, artists, and comedians. There are labor activists. Many are involved in technology. The list is long. The simple conclusion is that choosing self-directed learning during the high school years has had no limiting role on our alumni collectively. Further, we propose that having 27% of alumni involved in self-employment or unusual work demonstrates that self-directed learning may encourage independence and a commitment to follow one's passions for a career. Reference 164. To clarify, Ken defines unusual work to be careers such as glass blowing, fashion design, professional rock climbing, a horse trainer, or a Buddhist monk. As of the publishing of this book, there are now 13 Liberated Learner Centers throughout the world. You can find a center near you using the searchable map on the Liberated Learners website, reference 165. The Liberated Learners Network also offers coaching to people who are interested in opening their own centers. Joel Hammond, who co-founded a Liberated Learner Center in Princeton, New Jersey, called the Princeton Learning Co-op, also published a book on how to open your own Liberated Learner Center, called the Teacher Liberation Handbook, reference 166. Like the ALCs and Sudbury schools, Liberated Learners Centers offer a sliding scale for tuition to their members. In fact, North Star states that since their inception, they have not turned down a single teen due to financial reasons.